That one breath at a time that comes bubbling up sometimes as the carbonated holiness of laughter, helping us to land, helping me to land. There is that truism of teaching that we teach what we need to know. I invite you to hold me in prayer this morning as I follow Spirit's lead. Opening my heart and inviting you to open your hearts to the vulnerability, to the presence, to the tiredness, to the laughter, to the kingdom of heaven present in this moment and all that our holy imagination calls into being. As I've been trying to practice the loving kindness meditation as part of my daily, or mostly daily, practice, I've been trying to hear these words, may, as a call of imagination into being. So I invite you, as we are centering in, to repeat the words to this meditation in your own mind, in your heart, or just let the sound of Roger's beautiful guitar playing and the sound of my voice wash over you, through you. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be led to loving kindness. May I be free from suffering. May I be well. May I be at peace, and may I be joyful. And then holding in our imagination, holding with our intuition, trusting that what we call forth for those we love, that we will find a way to show up as that for them. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be free from suffering. May you be well. May you be at peace, and may you be joyful. And again, in our holy imagination, calling to our heart and mind those we find challenging, those that we label as other or difficult or as wrong-headed. And may we be led with our intuition in the spirit of trusting waiting, that all that the divine is calling forth in each of us, they will be led to alongside of us as we say, may you be filled with loving kindness. May you be free from suffering. May you be well. May you be at peace, and may you be joyful. And may all beings may our Mother, the Earth, may all that is alive in our universe, in this universe that expands beyond our imagination, may we recognize that all of creation is filled with loving kindness because it cannot help but be filled with loving kindness. May we recognize that in our own call to well-being, to peace, to alleviating suffering wherever we see it, and to showing up as joy, as peace. In every moment that is this moment alive in the kingdom of heaven. And so it is. And so it is. And so it is. And so it is. Thank you. Thank you for co-creating sanctuary this morning. This was one of those Sundays when I walked in or ran in, feeling scattered. Recognizing the moments when I've landed in that space with Spirit, following Spirit's lead in this week between last Sunday's miracle and this morning. And as I walked through the doors, greeted by Carol, sharing a moment of laughter at the perfect timing of her opening that front door, as I was like, what door do I go in this morning? Should I open that? Jerry greeting me at the office door was like, I want to show you this beautiful thing that Roger sent out, and I have already had it on my phone, and aligning ourselves with our whole beings, with our highest aspiration, our highest good, our highest sense of who we are. And all then of the threads of the things that I have typed in front of me to land myself here are secondary. They're secondary to what happens when we show up, when we take the time to show up. Talents are not just our artistic creativity. We have a lot of artistic and creative ability in this. And as I have shared other talks, when I did my little watercolor painting of a rainbow, because that was what I could do in my fearful state of, I don't know how to paint. Our creative reality is that we are of the Creator, and so we are creative beings. So we show up, our presence, the way we show up for each other. When someone in our community or someone in our city and someone in the world is suffering, we show up. We bring a casserole. We bring flowers. We send a card. We say, do you want to take a walk? And I'll just listen. We show up with our time. We show up with our creative hearts. And we show up with the treasure of all that we are. And yes, sometimes that is, of this abundance in this world, I can offer this to ease your suffering in this way. I can offer this financial generosity to grow this thing in the world. And as a church, of course, we rely on that. It's how we keep the beautiful front door open. It's how we keep the AV equipment paid for and the streaming services going, and we recognize the gifts of our music team. But those conversations that Diane alluded to helped me recognize something powerful about our community. We have a leadership circle. When we have our annual meeting and we do this little yearly blurb about what it is to be on the board of trustees, we hold the spiritual consciousness of the church, and what does that mean? What does that mean if it's not just yada, 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 happy little words on a poster or on our website? What does it mean to say that we hold this community as a leadership team that is circular because we are one circle among the many circles that are doing this plate spinning thing sometimes, it feels like, in our community? We have an abundance and prosperity team. We have a board of trustees. We have people who listen to what it means to follow Spirit's lead when we have our initial first board meeting of the new board members coming on, when we slow down the train. We welcome, we get to know each other a little bit, and then we listen for some wisdom that is beyond the things we think we should do. I don't know about you, but I grew up, you've met my mom and dad. Hi, Mom and Dad. I'm pretty sure you're watching this today. It was a loving household. But it also, right, we grow up from children knowing there are things we should do and things we shouldn't do. When Phil comes to talk and do a workshop in a couple of weeks, he's going to talk about the yamas and the niyamas of the yogic tradition. The things to do, the things not to do. Not so that we are good people and we don't go burn in hell, so that we don't create the hell that we live in, so that we can be a healthy cell in the life of the world, so that we can feel where we are led by Spirit, by God, by the universe, that omni-nameable, unnameable presence that some of us call God, or spirit, or Christ consciousness, or as my former brother-in-law used to say, the great oogly moogly. How do we listen? What does it mean that we show up here to listen? I'm standing here wishing I had bare feet so I'd be even a tiny bit more grounded, but I show up here. What does this podium mean? It means nothing. This is not me opening your brains and giving you all my hard-earned wisdom. Because today it would have been right out the window. This is a collaborative effort. And today I feel that truth very powerfully. How do I follow Spirit's lead? I read a lot. Sometimes I get lost in words, though. I love poetry, you know that, and there are poets and creatives that feed my spirit, and that's a good thing. And sometimes I need to quiet the voices in my head and just find stillness. Sometimes that means I need to actually go outside, even if it is just sitting on my little narrow back deck and watching the squirrels that are sometimes annoying run around in the backyard, listening to the sounds of traffic and trees. Sometimes it's that simple. Over and over, I recognize, I said this on our Zoom class the other day with Reverend Kelly. Over and over again, I recognize that I could hone my talks for the almost 3 years that I've been doing this with you all to one simple message. Following Spirit's lead is an inside job. I have to commit to my own spiritual transformation, my own awakening, my own spiritual growth, my own path, wherever I am. And like you, where I am on any given day is different than it might be on the other days. Committing to that showing up, it's an inside job. I have to listen to the voice of God within. I have to let go of the voice that are sometimes the competing sounds of the voices in my head. It's an inside job. And it is never about my own transformation. It is also about us in community. Because if we hold a vision to the spiritual awakening of all, that's what we're called to, our own and each other's. As we transform our own hearts, our own lives, by listening, by following that lead, we then transform every place else we walk in the world. This Sabbath practice is one of our practices as a community. When I think about, and this is the teacher in me, and part of what I was thinking about this morning as I did my prayer and meditation, trying to quiet some of this, is I love to see the through line. When I was teaching high school students, one of the things I loved is when a student noticed the through line. But I felt the through line of earlier this summer talking about how are we open channels? How do we keep our channels open for that listening? How are we the change we want to see in the world, even though that's not exactly how Gandhi put it? How are we showing up to be the peace? How have we been and how have we received miracles of generosity like the loaves and the fishes where what little we have, we give, and we are given more in return. That's the gift of committing to the inside job, but to committing to that in community. That's the miracle of what happens when we come together. And yes, of course, that is the way your financial offerings help us continue to stake our claim. But here is something I read this morning that helped me to see the both and, the yes and. Christine Walters Paintner writes about Sabbath time, that one of the things that makes contemplative life, and that is just any way we find in our lives and in our practices to pray, to meditate, to be still, to walk, to dance our prayers, to sing our prayers. That contemplative life is countercultural. And what makes it countercultural is the active resistance against living a life of busyness and exhaustion, of not making that a badge of pride, of making time to ponder, to be more present, and to live life more slowly and attentively. We are surrounded, she continues, by messages of scarcity. And so our anxiety gets fueled. One of the most profound practices to resist this kind of anxiety is to fast from its hold on me by practicing Sabbath time. When we do that, when we practice time, it doesn't have to be on a Sunday. When we practice that time of slowing down, we are making a visible statement that our lives are not defined by that perpetual anxiety. Heaven is not some reality after we die, but a living presence now. Capitalism, she says, tells us the opposite, that we can buy paradise if we only work hard enough, and that it is only for a select few. At the heart of our relationship to the divine, to the practice of slowing down and hearing Spirit, is a relationship with the source who cannot be depleted because it's the source. There is no depletion of the source of all that is. When we stand in that truth, and I can only get there when I slow down, when I show up, because otherwise my active mind is lost in, what are we going to do? Do we have to have a bake sale? What do we have to do? What do we have to do? What do we have to do? And that's in my life at home, with my lovely parents, with my lovely kids and their lovely kids and my friends. It's all of that. What are we going to do? What do we have to get done? That's not the relationship with Source that the source of all givingness calls us into. So yes, we need to look at what is coming in. How are we choosing with joy what goes out? Diane mentioned Johnny Frederick's book. One of the powerful reminders that John gave to me this week was the reminder that even as a community, we do tithe out everything that we bring in, no matter what our checking account says. We tithe out 10%. Well, that's all fine and dandy, but if we are following the letter of the law and tithing our 10% without thinking about or praying about or finding joy in what we are sending forth into the world from what you donate as your treasure, your board, who's the holder of the consciousness of this church, is missing the boat. And I was missing the boat. So we have had some really sacred, sometimes challenging conversations this week. When we are moved, I was reminded by a friend, to that place of discomfort that brings us to tears, the sacred is there. That's what it means when we have that little sheet out on the bulletin board, agreeing and disagreeing in love. That's actually what it means. If we come with vulnerability to sacredness of having challenging conversations with people who believe differently from us, with what we are voting for versus what we're voting against, for people who live and love in a way that's different than we live and love, all of those conversations, all of those realities, all of that following Spirit's lead, that all comes from the same source of grace that is never depleted. So how are we showing up? How are we listening? How are we softening? How are we growing from that truth that we are in partnership with God, with Spirit, with the universe, that is the unlimited, unlimiting, did I say that right? Yes, there are no limits on that source. And in that clear-eyed looking at that which is, there's the paradox. We are then invited with that miracle of generosity to get creative about how we step forth generously, how we feed the community here, how we feed the community beyond our walls. So I thank you for creating together the sanctuary where we show up when it's messy, we show up when it is joyful, but where we show up recognizing that this is the exact community that we need. We are the miracle we've been waiting for, and we are awake to that. And so let us take that awakening, breathe it in, hold the truth that as we send that loving kindness into our own hearts, as we recognize it, that we then show up as it. And may we continue to be led to deepening our loving kindness. Be led to be peace. Be led to living with ease and joy, relieving suffering wherever we see it. And may we continue to be led to being ever more open channels of gratitude for all that is. And so it is. Amen.